Arlington Institute. I'm John Peterson, and I'm the founder and the president of the Arlington Institute. I work here, but we're very happy to have you all with us. We are going to have a dinner afterwards, and it's a no-host dinner. And if you'd like to get together and chat a bit more with Joseph, you're more than welcome to come along. We have some papers in the back with some maps and some other such things, but I thought I'd mention that while it's in my mind. And if you'd like to come along, we'd be pleased to have you. By way of introduction, let me introduce you to a new program that we've got going at the Arlington Institute. It's something that we're going to stand up here in about a week or so, and it's called The World's Biggest Problem. It's a web portal, and it's essentially a single place where you can come and find a very comprehensive amount of information around the half a dozen or so big issues that kind of in my mind are all kind of going off of a cliff, right? The big issues for which conventional approaches to solutions just guaranteed not to work. And the economic crisis is one, and peak oil and water scarcities and species extinction and climate change are all here. And ultimately, when you get to this, you can drill down and get to scenarios and futures and system dynamics models and chats and resources and people and places and things and conferences and whatever you want to do. And it's really an attempt to be a kind of a one-stop shop where you can come and learn a great deal and stay current about these kind of events. Now, let me tell you, we have a secret agenda behind all of this. And the secret agenda is to make clear the fact that there is no conventional way in which you can effectively deal with any of these problems. That these problems are essentially a byproduct of the way we think and the way we operate and the systems that we have in place today. And that most of the attempts for solutions by policies, by governments, by institutions, by nonprofits are all kind of based upon using the conventional kind of approach to things that are so familiar to us to try to tune up or adjust some of these kinds of things. Now, we think that these kinds of trends are such that what they are coming together, there's a fusion of these that are coming together in the coming years that are going to redefine the way we all live. They are going to threaten the very essential nature, the structure of the institutions and the processes and the supply chains and all of the elements of our lives, those things that we depend upon, all those things that we have become comfortable with, those things that we build our sense of self-image and self-worth. And when they start to erode, in which they change and become suspect and don't work the same way, then what happens is all of our sense of who we are and security and all those kinds of things are then threatened. And so what we find ourselves in the coming years is an amazing kind of time of change, fundamental kind of shift, going in quite a new direction for which we have no analog, we have no experience, we have no tools, we don't have a way to kind of deal with it. And so what we need to do is essentially figure out a new way to deal with this transition, with this extraordinary change and uncertainty, and also prepare ourselves for the new world that shows up after it, because there is going to be a new world that comes out after it, and by definition, it won't work the same way that this one does, right? So it's really kind of cool. I mean, from an intellectual point of view, I mean, trying to work your way through and think your way through all of this is pretty interesting. Now, I wrote a chapter for a book that's going to come out later this year. And I argued that this new world that comes out downstream is essentially probably going to be defined by the nexus of spirit and the physical. That there is this kind of interesting, kind of emergent kind of world that's showing up where what we are going to do is we're going to co-create that world with this larger dimension of spirituality, defined in all kinds of wild and weird and strange and unusual and kind of wonderful kind of ways. But we are not going to operate in the same kind of way. That's what happens after every one of these punctuations, in history between different eras. And so, we've got projects at the Arlington Institute we're working on, trying to go collect dreams and see how they point toward the future. And that's kind of like connecting into spirit, into another level of consciousness and so on. And so there's this very interesting kind of emergent amalgam between kind of spirit and the physical things that we're familiar with in practical kind of work, everyday working kind of ways. This is not just meditation and stuff, although I got nothing against meditation. But, this is real stuff. Computers plugging into dreams and things like that. Okay. So as we sit at the Arlington Institute and look downstream at this kind of new emergent kind of world, we keep our eyes out for people who try to think in those kinds of terms. And our speaker this evening exemplifies one who, over the years, Joseph Jaworski, has played in that space between the physical, the really concrete kind of stuff, and this new kind of emergent area of spirit and practical spirit and how it works. Joseph, who we've known each other on and off for quite a few years, he's been in law firms and he's run scenario planning for Royal Dutch Shell, big corporations, and he's a solid kind of guy, he knows his way around. But then he writes these amazing kind of books called Synchronicity, and all these weird things kind of show up in your life that you can't explain. And most recently, he's written a wonderful book with a number of other friends of some of us in the room called Presence, which talks about a fundamental kind of process by which groups, and certainly individuals as well, can work their way through from the world that we know now, maybe into this new space that is going to represent where we're all going. And so, I'm very, very pleased to introduce and welcome Joseph here to be with us tonight. We've had a couple of very interesting conversations on the phone in the last month or so, talking about what might be out on the horizon. And so we'll have a question and answer period, and we can all ask him hard questions about what he thinks. But Joe, thanks. It's nice to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, John. It's really wonderful to be here with all of you. I've had an opportunity to speak to a few of you, and it's a very interesting group, and it leads me to believe that the best way to do this today is for me to make some opening remarks, maybe 30 minutes or so, and I'll tell you in a moment what I might cover, sort of give you a little opening roadmap. And then the main part of the evening or the afternoon would be our dialoguing together, because that's where we'll learn something together. And I'm here as a learner and not as a lecturer, and I just want to open the gateway a little bit so we can begin this dialogue, and that's what's interesting to me. What John was just talking about is what my whole life is about, and I want to tell you a little bit about how all of that unfolded as a way to underscore the importance of what John was saying and to begin to explain a little bit about a process that I and a very close colleague of mine, Otto Scharmer, uncovered, which will hopefully provide part of the answer to what it is we do about this. So that's what I'd like to talk about. And so the title of this is Innovation in Complex Problem Solving, the U process. And the U process is what Otto and I uncovered together. I don't say discovered or established in any way, because this is all about ancient knowledge that we actually sort of helped uncover and that we were led to. So I personally feel very much like an instrument sort of being used to do this, as opposed to sort of owning any of this. So I thought what I might do is tell you a little bit about the antecedents to this, and then I'll describe a little bit of the process itself, and then say a word or two about the intention that I and a group of my partners and colleagues have together about how we can address what John was talking about, and then tell you a little bit about the progress so far that we've had in helping to deal with some of this. And then I'll end and open it for the real learning session, which would be mutual dialogue here. And I've got a couple of my partners here, at least, maybe more, and I'm going to rely on them to answer the questions I can't answer. So with that, let me just begin. And let's keep this informal. If there's something you don't understand that I'm in the midst of describing, just hold your hand up and stop me, and I'll try to explain it. And then we'll get into the dialogue. This story began for me when I was 18, and I was at a little central Texas town of Waco, where Baylor University is established. And I was a freshman, and I was on the periphery one afternoon of the biggest tornado that's ever hit Texas in its history, or recorded history. And that particular tornado killed over 500 people and injured almost 3,000 in an instant, just like that. And I happened to be 2 blocks away from the epicenter of it, and was part of the group that was formed to help rescue the survivors. And we worked for 3 days and 3 nights to do that. And of course, at that age, this was a terrible experience, you can imagine. The thing that was unusual for me was how beautiful the experience was in another way. And what I'm describing is the way that this team of 100 people worked together, which was so extraordinary. I had never experienced this before in my entire life. And B, when it was over with and I had a chance to reflect on it, I wanted to find a way to recreate this on a reliable basis. And I was absolutely fortunate enough at that moment when I was 18 to sort of have my purpose defined for me, my life purpose. And that was the holy grail I was after, which was, what is this experience all about? How could we recreate that in a non-crisis situation? And all of us know what that is. We've all had this experience, but let me just say that we have started calling this the unified action field, and the qualities are well known to most, or if not all of you. When you're in the midst of an experience like this well-known phenomenon, there's high energy. It's palpable. There's heightened awareness, and time slows down in a way that is quite extraordinary. So you end up doing things that are spontaneous, but they're done without conscious knowledge or control, and you end up doing something extraordinary, and you sort of look over your shoulder and say, how did that happen? How was I able to do that? And when you're working with a group of people, there's self-organization and distributed leadership, seamless changes, and where you almost complete each other's sentences. And there's high coherence, therefore, people acting as one organism. And the most interesting part of the phenomenon is this deeper knowing that we have, which is what we are really after when we're trying to replicate this, because your foresight is extraordinary, and your premonitions, individually and as a group, come true in ways that are beyond your imagination. So it's an extraordinary sort of foresight that happens here.